Hey, how's everybody doing today? I hope everyone's having an amazing day today. Today, we're going to dive into something I think that's very important for basically all musicians, and that's how to mix your playing with a backing track. Whether you're going to do something on YouTube or Facebook or any social media like that, I think it's a very important thing to learn how to do this and do it well. Today, we're going to dive into how to mix your recording, your playing with a backing track using stock plugins. Or I'm going to try to use stock plugins, but this is pretty universal. It goes pretty much across the board. So let's go ahead and get into this. We have a backing track here, and we have a solo flugelhorn. So let's listen to the track. Okay, so as we see here, it's just a solo horn with a backing track. So let's dive into this. So the first thing you want to do is let's get our routing situated, meaning let's get our routing going, our pipeline, so to speak, so we can work efficiently and make sure that we have all our ducks in a row when it comes to reverb or delay, any other processing. So I'm going to start here with, we'll do 4 stereo aux tracks here. And then, again, if I'm working too fast, I apologize. So we're going to call this the mix bus right here. And what that is that everything that we do, all the processing, all the music is going to go to this one thing here, and this is where we're going to do most of our processing. So go here, mix bus, okay, and then here we're going to do what they call a horn sub, because we're going to do some processing and we're going to sum it up into one thing. So, and the horn sub is going to go to the mix bus. Then we're going to call this the reverb, horn reverb. Sorry about that. We'll just put horn verb here. And then we're going to call this the room, because eventually we're going to put everybody in the same room, and it's kind of just glue everything together. Okay, so all this is going to go to the mix bus here. The horn verb, since it's the horns verb, we're going to send that to the horn sub. The room is going to just go out to the main out here. And so our flugelhorn here is going to go to the horn sub, and this is going to go to mix bus. Okay, so the first thing I want to do on any track, I want to listen to if there's any intonation problems or anything like that. You want to make sure that it's the best performance possible. And for the most part, this is, he plays decently and he sounds good. So we're going to leave that. The track is a professional track, so we don't need to mess with that. So let's go ahead and dive into the first thing we're going to do is EQ this flugelhorn. Now, I said we're going to start with stock plugins, and we will, but I have to show you what my process here and how I go about doing these things. So let's look at the flugelhorn. Oops, sorry. Solo safeties. Alright, so as you can see here, there's nothing worth there's no information that's worth anything below 235. So, and if you're really confused on how far to high pass filter things, this is a trick that helps. See, that's just a little trick that you could do. Move move the filter to where it starts to filter out the body of the instrument, and then gradually move it back. So let's listen. So what we're going to do here is we're going to do some what they call subtractive EQ. We're going to take out the frequencies that don't really flatter the instrument and that are problematic. So, and a good rule of thumb, again, there's a million ways to do this, folks. This is just one way, but a good rule of thumb is to do some surgical EQ, and then when you boost the good stuff, kind of do a wider band. So I'll show you what I mean in a sec. Let's look for some problematic frequencies. Check your work. Let's bypass it. For me, as a horn player myself, the flugelhorn has to be dark. I like a dark flugelhorn. I don't like a nasally trumpet sounding flugelhorn. So now we got rid of some of the problem frequencies. Let's boost the good. Okay, so as you can see right here, that's kind of the body of the flugelhorn. That's kind of that low body of the flugelhorn, and you want to add a little sparkle here. So let's do about 8 dB, and again, small. When I say small increases, you don't need much. Okay, so if you want it a little darker, you can boost it more, but be careful because this frequency right here tends to cause mud. So let's listen to it with the track. Okay, so sounds pretty good. Now, remember I said we're going to use stock plugins. Well, this is a free plugin. The first thing I would like to do is when I have a horn, I always like to put some tape saturation or some saturation of some sort in on the instrument. Now, there is a tape saturation here from Slate Digital that costs money, but this right here, and I'll pull it up, this is called Revival. And it's a free plugin. You can get it from Slate Digital, absolutely free. At least it was free when I got it. So let's listen to it. Let's see what it does, and be very careful with this, because you could overwrite it and you could distort. So here's the flugelhorn. Now let's add a little sparkle, some more body. Okay. It's a subtle difference, but it is there. And then so let's add our EQ. Yeah, so it's subtle differences, but let's listen to it with the track. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is, that sounds all fine and good. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to carve out some space for the flugelhorn in the track. Now there's two ways to do this. I'm going to show you both ways. First way is called what they call sidechain compression. So you go here, go to your compressor limiter, and what we're going to do is we're going to create a send. We're going to send the signal. Okay, let's go down here. Let's call this horn SC for sidechain. Okay. Now what's going to happen is we're going to send the signal to this compressor using this key button. Okay, there we go. It's right there. And what's going to happen is only the signal, when the horn plays, it's going to kick the track down a little bit. So let's sidechain. So make sure that's engaged. So I'll show you right now. So I'm going to push the threshold all the way up. So nothing's happening. So let's go a little more to where it hits the compressor. So as you can see here, what I did with the release is I don't want a every time the horn plays. I want kind of a da da, something where you really can't tell. And again, I'm only doing a little bit. As you can see, I'm only doing like 2 dB here. And that's one way to kind of carve out. If you could tell, like, there's a little more space for the flugelhorn. So this is without. Okay, so that's one way of doing that, using sidechain compression. Another way, and this is the way I tend to go. Now this compressor is a multi-band compressor, and that's what it does. It compresses certain bands. So so what we're going to do is, it's not an internal, it's external, meaning we're getting the signal from an external source, which is this bus right here. As you can see, this bus right here. Okay, so look what happens. And I'm going to move the threshold down a little bit. And again, see, you don't want to compress a lot. You don't want to do much. But as you can see, this is kind of a better way to do this. They do this a lot with vocals and bands. And what they do is they carve out a little space for the solo instrument. So, and again, you don't need the high stuff. You don't need, so the flugelhorn is living in this area. So let's narrow this a little bit. So we carved out some space for the flugelhorn. Now let's go back to the flugelhorn, and let's do a little bit of compression. Again, you don't want a whole lot. Again, we're going to use just a standard compressor. And in a second, there's two ways to do this to really make the flugelhorn stand out, and I'll show you in a sec. Okay, so let's compress the flugelhorn a little bit. All right, so there's one way of doing it. Again, you don't need much compression. You don't need much. You don't need much. This has to sound as natural as possible. So, in my opinion, this kind of sounds like something Chris Bodie would play, or this kind of sounds like a movie trumpet type thing. And so that's kind of the vibe I'll go for on this. So that brings me to my next point. What reverb do I use? Now, okay, so once we've picked what kind of reverb we want, or what kind of vibe we want, now it's time to choose the reverb. And the first thing I like to do is I like to put a reverb and delay together. And I'll show you why in a sec. So this track is about 100 beats per measure, so I synced it. And again, it's a little bit of, a little bit. I can't stress that enough. Use this stuff sparingly. One of the biggest things I see with a lot of novice engineers is they overuse reverb. So the trick is to play the track, play the instrument, vocal, guitar, whatever you want to use. Get it to where you can hear the reverb and back off. I'll show you. Now let's listen to that with the track. Okay, now let's see if the delay helps a little bit. It gives it more body, more fullness. See, to my ears, it gives it that more haunting type vibe. Now, here's the thing. A lot of novice engineers just put reverb on, and they don't really tighten the reverb. And I'll show you what I mean. I EQ my reverbs, and I'll show you why. So, right here, if you look right here, there's really nothing worth, from like the 300 range on back, there's nothing worth. It just muddies up the waters, and I'll show you what I mean. Okay, now let's go ahead and let's tighten this up a little bit. Let's move this over to like 300. And listen to what it does. It kind of focuses the reverb. See, I don't like that delay. Let me put this here, and let's change that. So. That's a little bit better. What I did is I just made these things a little shorter. As you can see here, I made these little delay a little shorter, so it has that slap back, and it sounds good. So let's. Again, it's the vibe we're going for, that movie vibe. And so here's one thing: if you're having trouble, they do this a lot. So I'm gonna go ahead and show you what I mean. They do this a lot for vocals, especially country, rock music, and it's what they call parallel compression. And if you want the instrument to really stick out in the mix, I'll show you a little trick they use. When I say they, is professional engineer. So we're going to duplicate this track. Okay. And all we're going to do is we're not going to put any processing on it. No processing whatsoever. Okay. Get rid of all this stuff. No processing. Get rid of all this processing. All right, so we're going to call this stacked compression, and we're going to use 2 compressors. And we're gonna just same setting. So let me show you what I mean. I'm gonna put the output low, and we're just gonna gradually okay, so we're going to do that, and then copy this down. Again, compressor's just it's barely kissing the compressor, but watch what happens when we bring this in. Watch what happens when we bring this compressed file in. Do you hear that? There's more brilliance. There's more, they do that all the time. They do it with drums. They do it with vocals. They do it, it's what they call parallel compression. Okay, so now we want to put everyone in the same room. We want to do that. But before we do that, we're going to go over here to our, mix bus right here, and we're going to put some tape emulation here. And watch what happens to the track as a whole. See how it just, I brought out the bass, brought out the drums, brought everything out. So let's go ahead and balance that a little bit. Okay, great. Now, what I'd like to do is I'd like to create some space and make it really clean, and let's see if there's any mud in our mix. Let's check that out first. But before we do that, let's put everybody in the same room. So we're going to go here to, again, stock plugin. We're going to choose a hall, and usually jazz is played in a kind of a hall setting, a small club. You could use a room too if you wanted to, but let's use a hall for right now. And we're gonna put the track in a hall, and we're gonna put the trumpet in a hall. Okay, and watch what happens. It kind of just glues everything together. So just play. Okay, just a little bit. You don't need a lot. Oh no, oops. Wrong track. Again. Now it's starting to sound like a track. Now it's starting to sound nice and professional. One of the other things I like to do is I like to add some width. Again, stock plugin that comes with Pro Tools. We're just going to do a little bit of width, just a little bit. I'm going to do the level. Okay, so let's watch what happens. You see how that alone just brought our mix up to life. Now, remember what I was talking about, getting rid of some of the mud. Okay, so let's go ahead and bypass that. But let's get some of the rid of the mud in our mix. Let's check out. Let's go through some frequencies, and if there's anything that's really bothering us, let's get rid of it. See? Very small moves, but let's add some air. And let's add a little bass boost, just a little bit. And let's do a high pass filter around 40. We can do it. Let's see what sounds good in the mix. So we made a pretty good choice. And again, there's 1,000 ways to do this. I mean, there's a lot of other things we could do, but this is just a pretty simple way. If you're new to mixing, if you're new to Pro Tools, if you're new to just if you're just new to this is just a pretty good way to start off. Now, what I would do is, just to put some icing on the cake, I would compress, and again, compress very little. Let's go 10 and 2 o'clock here. See where again. See how I brought our flugelhorn out? Let's bring them down a little bit. It sounds like we need to push our band back, so we could do that with reverb and with volume. Again, that's just a quick and simple way to mix yourself with a backing track. This works on vocals, this works on guitars, trombones, saxophones, pianos. I mean, this is kind of a very universal way of doing this. And again, it's all to taste. Whatever your musical taste is, make sure that the solo instrument, you or whoever's recording, make sure that's in the foreground, and make sure everything else is in the background. And you could do that with your track here. We could do that with volume, and you could do that with reverb. One thing, let's try this real quick before we go. Also perspective. What kind of vibe? Remember I said what kind of vibe? You can use that with pre-delay. And if you don't know what pre-delay is, it's how fast the reverb kicks in. And it's a good way to push the band back. So let's push the band back like, I don't know, let's try like 43 milliseconds. And watch what happens. Okay, so that's with pre-delay. See if you can tell the difference. I can tell right away that the band was a lot closer to me. Let's push it back a little bit. And if you want to push them back even more, go to like go to like 57. So basically here we made two different sound sources sound like they were recorded in the same room. And, again, if this is something, you want to do for your YouTube channel or social media, this is a very quick way to, sorry about that. I was sitting back in my chair, but this is a quick and easy way to do this. If you have any questions, if you have any comments or any, just basically any inquiries, let me know. I'll be more than happy to help. Again, there's a million ways to do this. I couldn't even tell you. And there's 1,000 videos out there on YouTube. This is just one of them. And if this works for you and it helps you, if I help someone today, it was worth it to me. So I hope everyone has a great day. I hope, you come out some great mixes, great recordings, and we'll see you again. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to mix a brass choir. And I've got requests to mix a brass choir or a string section. And so I think the next one will be a brass choir. So stay tuned for that.